What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
A monk was trying to get home before dark, as he was speeding along the path that led through the forest. Something long and thin caught his eye, but he could not quite pick it out. He was startled when he got a little closer. A giant snake. Unfortunately, this is the only way home. And since it's getting dark, the monk didn't have time to wait. He's starting to panic. When he got a little breath, he prepared a makeshift torch for himself and approached the snake with fear. By the light of the torch, the snake turned into a rope. The monk came to faith and said, "My God, not take your life," relaxed and laughed at this illusion he had created for himself and sat down in his way. What did you get out of this story? Our senses mislead us, but with a little enlightenment, we can get rid of ignorance and fears. Understand that these are illusions. One of the richest and smartest people in the world recently put forward a claim. In fact, it was not the first time he had made this claim, but it was enough to be on the agenda again. He said, "Almost certainly we are living in a simulation." Have you guessed who it is? Elon Musk.
And soon we'll have virtual reality, augmented reality. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality. Even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000 from what it is right now, then you just say, okay, well, let's imagine it's 10,000 years in the future, which is nothing in the evolutionary scale. You seem to follow that the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
As for me, I say, what do you know? Almost certainly not. We live in a 100% simulation world. But the concept of simulation I'm talking about is not such a technological computer simulation. We will get to him in a minute. I also want to look at the simulation argument from a slightly different angle. I'm talking about that. We have been shown a number of simulations since the day we were born. By our family, the school we studied, our friends and teachers. You up, it's who you are, you believe this, you came from here, this will happen after he dies, this is how the state is governed, this is how education should be, it's moral to this, it is immoral to this, here is how a guy behaves, it is like a woman should live like this. And what evidence to those who taught us the simulations have that what they are teaching is true? How did they know that we are pulling is into the same simulation? Unfortunately, we often see that they learn this not through their own research or question, but through this transmission of previous generations. So, how do we understand which of these simulations that have been imposed on us all our lives are true, which are false, which are useful, and which are harmful? Do you remember the story at the beginning of the video? Lighting our own torch, not being afraid, realizing that our sense and feelings mislead us. Now let's come to the concept of technological simulation. So, as Elon Musk also maintained it, could we be living in a computer simulation? The question. Although this question was perceived as a serious question for some of you were asked, come on, is this nonsense? He might have made you say it. But keep watching. After what I will tell you in a little while, you will understand that this question is a not hollow one at all. Have you ever heard the brain in a jar argument? Let's take a closer look at this argument. All the sense you think of are detected thanks to sensors that convert indoor or outdoor signals into appropriate electrical signals. In short, there is nothing but thin electric currents that travel throughout your brain, which are the center of your perception. But if the whole reality consists only of electric currents circulating inside the brain, how can we be sure that reality is real? Or because our brain does not have a piece of meat that lives in a jar, a laboratory, and is connected to a number of cables. Even apart from the body, a brain kept alive can perceive itself as living, being that is undergone different experiences in different environments when appropriate stimuli are provided. So you may be a brain in a jar who is currently experiencing the delusions that you are watching videos in your comfortable armchair, and you have almost no evidence to prove otherwise.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
Well, and if you had never woken up from that dream, then how would you decipher the difference between reality and a dream? This argument brings us to the station that Neo is in the Matrix movie. From now on, I will tell you a little bit about the movie. Let me warn you from the beginning. If there are those who have not watched the movie, let them watch it first and then come back to this video. The story of people being trapped inside the Matrix is as follows. Humanity had reached a very advanced level in technology. Thanks to machines, they were comfortable and had slaves to do their every job. They even programmed the machines so that they could develop themselves. At some point they were gaining consequences. One day, a robot named B166ER killed its owner. Things got complicated all of a sudden. A war has broken out between machines and humans. Humanity has tried to commit genocide and machines. The machines that wanted to get rid of slavery turned against humanity and made rapid technological progress by building a city called Zero One. Now they had established an economic and technological superiority over humanity. Despite this, the machines offered people to make a deal. People refused to cooperate. They split the world in half. They rained bombs on the city of machines, but they didn't win the war. Machines were superior to people. Human cities began to be destroyed one by one. After that, the human leaders introduced a procedure called the Darkstorm effect. The sky would be darkened, and thus the machines would be deprived of the energy they received from the sun.
We don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
The irreversible plan has been put into practice, but the fact that the machines were deprived of the sun did not bring about their end. They had a plan B that they would use to get energy. They discovered that humans have a bioelectric energy in their bodies that they can use, so they built huge plantations of people.
There are fields, endless fields, where human beings are no longer born. We are grown.
Human leaders desperately had to sign the Matrix project, so their bodies would be machines, and their minds would live in a heavily networked program. This first version of Matrix did not work. The human mind was not fit to live in a paradise where everyone was happy. That is why more than half of the crops perished. On top of that, the architect created a new Matrix version. This time he created a simulation of a world full of pain and misery, but that didn't work either. The architect finally decided to add an intuitive code called Oracle to the system. The code does create a cable of understanding human nature. Seer developed a program and 19% of the subjects accepted all kinds of environments if they were given free will. This is the third version Matrix was developed, which has a structure that can be guided by beliefs and choices. The crops were no longer dying. Here Neo, like billions of others, was just a brain in a jar. He lived in this program and experienced himself as a programmer in 1999. It was nothing more than a simple battery that powered the machines. But Neo adopted the reality he was living in. He was accused. His quest led to the intersection of his path with Morpheus. Morpheus knew that the chosen one he had been looking for many years was Neo.
You are the one, Neo. You see, you may have spent the last few years looking for me, but I've spent my entire life looking for you.
Morpheus promised him only the truth. So Neo swallowed the red pill and his journey from the dream world to the real world began. He had survived the simulation. Referring to the game Pong, which came out in the 1970s, Elon Musk said, "Look at this, just two lines and a ball. And look at the current games, how realistic they are." Also, I agree with him. If we have been able to realize technology to this level in just 50 years, why is it not possible to simulate universes in the future? But if it is possible in the future, how can we be sure that this has not already happened? We cannot. In fact, tell you something even more interesting. If this is possible in the future, we are almost certainly living a computer simulation.
You look at our computing power today, and you say, I have the power to program a world inside of a computer. Well, imagine in the future where you have even more power than that, and you can create characters that have, for example, free will. So this is a world, and I program in the laws that govern that world. Now you're a character in that world and you think you have free will, and you say, I want to invent a computer. So you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. So now you lay out all these universes and throw a dart. Which of these universes are you most likely to hit? The original one that started it, or the countless simulations, the daughter simulations that unfolded thereafter?
Now you will say how they could have simulated such a large universe. Who knows what kind of progressive power it would take to simulate a quadrillion atoms multiplied by a quadrillion times a quadrillion times. It is very difficult for me to imagine. But what if we don't need it? How so? It goes like this: you don't actually have to simulate the entire universe to convince someone that you are in a simulation. Just enough simulation to make a citizen living there feel real. I mean, what's the point of simulating what's going on behind me while I'm looking in this direction right now? Isn't that already the case with computer games? The map lost as you change location. What's the point of running the whole map at the same time? Does the progress really on this? There is a possibility that we are living in a simulation. Yes, as if that's not enough. Everyone but us can be just a fiction. I can only be sure that my own mind exists for sure. Everything else, my house, my car, my family, my friends, can all be simulation created to trick me. Which brings us to Descartes' famous saying, I think therefore I am. He brings it to his word. According to Descartes, I can doubt that everything exists, but with the exception of one thing, my own consequences. I cannot doubt that I am doubt. So it is certain that the doubter, that is, exists. I think therefore I am. So how do we get out of all this? Where do we live, brother? In a physical world? Is it in a computer game? Or is it inside a programmer managed by machines? If you look at the technology-related part of the job, unfortunately, we may never know. As a matter of fact, even if we were in a simulation, it wouldn't change much for us. We would still continue to live the same way. What does it matter if we live a happy, peaceful life and do not suffer? Then let's go back to the beginning of the video and see what we can do about the collective simulations imposed on us. The premise of this video is, many people find their life built on certain patterns and do not feel the need to question the truth for the rest of their lives. It shouldn't be like this. If we have established this civilization and are putting ourselves in a separate class from other living beings, we should question it. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. You can find the resources I use in the description section. Stay healthy.